What's going on YouTube? This is Tap Nuo, and I'm a minimal techno and microhouse artist from Los Angeles. And today I'm back with another tutorial of sorts. It's more of a sound breakdown. I want to show you how you can use stock Logic plugins and actually very straightforward techniques to achieve keys, achieve melodic elements over microhouse beats. And you can actually apply this to drum and bass or house music, techno, really whatever you want. Anything you need a light kind of keys over using Alchemy. So for sake of example, let's go ahead and listen to what we're going to be working on today. So these keys are inspired by Frutiger Arrow music, which is a recent favorite of mine. If I'm not listening to minimal, I'm pretty much only listening to Frutiger Arrow stuff. It's this like really chill kind of ambient music, and it has a lot of these types of keys that really just float across the track. When I was working on an earlier version of this, I had this.
Hey, look what's one I got.
I just had this beat. And I had some ear candy in there, textures, little snares and whatnot. But it needed more. And it needed something that was going to catch the listener, keep them engaged, and get stuck in their head of something that they can maybe almost hum to themselves. That's a really surefire way to know that your track is going to be remembered or memorable, whatever you want to call it. Like if someone can either play it on a piano or hum it or whistle it, that's a track that has staying power. And with minimal, you don't want to have too many melodies, and that's why I like Microhouse, because it's melodic, but it's not like it's not so melodic that it's like overwhelming. It's a lot of just tucked in there kind of stuff. And these keys, they're actually really straightforward. So it's the Alchemy synth. And for sake of example, let me just turn off most of the processing as well as the MIDI effects. So it's this Alchemy synth, and I saved a custom iteration of this preset as my own patch. But I started out with the Aurora over Iceland synth. And already you can tell it's a close sound. It's not exact. So in terms of like the version that I saved for my own patch, it's really just some of these macros that have been adjusted, as well as the ADSR. And that started out as like an ARP. So what I did is, and this was earlier in the process when I was just like super stoned, just messing around. I took some chords, and I was just seeing what chords would work in this track, which is in C Dorian, and I was just experimenting with chords and finding something that kind of just sat in that pocket of the more mid-range upper mids that I was trying to have something fit in. So took some chords, threw an ARP on top of them, and then when I wanted to like get a little more of a melody going, for inspiration, that's why I took this ARP. So let me turn these on. And Logic has a feature where when you're playing those chords, you can just drag the MIDI data out of the ARP into a new track. To kind of get the ball rolling, I was like, well, let me see if I can work with any of these notes out of the chord that I wrote, which takes us to, if I turn these off, which takes us to here. So these notes were spat out of an ARP that I then tweaked and copied and pasted and was just like playing around. And I mean, you can see it's really simple. It's 3 notes, 2 notes, 3 notes. But when you hear it played, it doesn't sound, how I first showed you. And the way that I got there is I used a note repeater. So it's transposing 5 semitones, and it's going to repeat once. And the velocity is pretty much going to stay the same at a 16th note. So if I go, yeah, I have my patch on. If I go and play that with the note repeater, I mean, it's still harsh. It still kind of like bites in the mid range a little too much. I mean, we want it to stand out in the mid range, but we don't want it to like punch you in the face in the mid range, you know? So the way that I achieved that is I added a randomizer, and the randomizer in Logic is excellent. I mean, it's really straightforward. I used the velocity humanizer preset for this and then tweaked it a little bit. And all that's doing is it's just like, it's making sure that whenever it plays those notes, it's not going to play them at the exact same intensity. So then I added an ARP on top of that, and that might sound counterintuitive because it's already such short notes, but really what I'm doing is I'm taking advantage of the swing on that. And I guess theoretically you could do that by dialing it in, but I just noticed like for some reason it was playing, the timing was right when I was adjusting these settings on the ARP, so I just kept it in. So if I play it with the ARP, so it kind of like plays a little bit behind the beat almost. And then on top of that, the randomizer, again, is just, you know, making sure that variation is happening with the intensity of those notes. And again, you know, Microhouse and minimal, it's a lot about like slight changes over time where maybe it's a similar sound, but it's not playing at the same intensity. And that variation is what allows you to then break out of the loop and play on existing motifs within the track. So from Alchemy, the processing that I have after that is just an EQ, which is really just you know, gain staging it a little bit and taking down a few, like 1.7 dB at 460 hertz, just because there was a frequency in there that was sticking out a little bit too much. And again, I'm not dipping like crazy because I didn't want to like adjust the phase or anything too much, because you can really throw the phase off when you start to EQ like crazy, and then you can lose some of the clarity of the sound. And then I added the compressor, which this is doing two things. It's sidechaining, but it's also taming some of those like harsh peaks, some of those sharp notes that really stand out, keeping it more in the pocket. And from there, speaking of keeping it in the pocket, the chorus was a really necessary plugin to put on here, because what a chorus is going to do is, especially if you apply it at like 15% or less, when you have a sound like this, so if I take it off, so what it does is it sends it back just a little bit. It sends it back just enough that things that in the mix that are monos, such as the kick, maybe some of the hi-hats or some of the snares, like those still have a chance to punch at their full capacity. Because again, it's all about space. So if you're carving out a little bit of space for those mono elements to come in, you're not going to lose any of the clarity. You might actually gain more image because you're sending something, you're making it more three-dimensional. And you know, the stock Logic chorus plugin is one of my favorites. I mean, it's an excellent plugin. It's super straightforward. It's only 3 knobs. And again, a lot of this is just experimentation, is just like getting really stoned and saying, you know what does this sound like? What are we doing here? What are we doing here? And I think as long as you know the fundamentals of like why you're making those choices, you can get away with like extreme experimentation. I mean, I'm actually looking forward to diving in further on this project, and maybe I'll do a separate tutorial of like how I made some of the other elements, because the processing chains on those, they're a lot more than this, but it's all intentional, right? And as long as you're being intentional, you will achieve results. So the next thing that I have on there is the Tokyo Dawn Nova, which actually is a free plugin. that you can get on, I think just if you Google Tokyo Dawn Nova or TDR Nova, it's really straightforward. It's a multi-band compressor and an EQ. So something like FabFilter, or there's other very similar plugins to this, but all it's doing, it's just taming some of those mid-range frequencies around 500. Some of those frequencies that might be clashing with other sounds that are going on, because there is a lot of ambience and various sounds that come in and out on this. And if I show you the hidden tracks, I mean, the hidden tracks on this are ridiculous. Like, it goes on and on and on. I mean, there's so many versions of this, and that's also part of it. Is just like, okay, what frequencies are standing out? What frequencies do I want to stand out? When what frequencies on this specific instrument are working and what's not working, and you want to just go with what's working and further build upon what you already have. And that's why I love Logic, because like Alchemy, it's a great starting point. I mean, a lot of these presets, like, you can just tweak a few settings and get great results. So the only other thing I have other than that is the Tube EQ, which is basically just a Pultec. I have it drop down on the volume just a little bit to further gain stage it. I'm boosting the highs, and I'm also cutting the highs, but this EQ is a different type of EQ than, say, this one. You're going to be doing more surgical stuff, and a tube EQ like this is a lot more to determine the color of the overall sound, determine more of the flavor, and this tool is great to further get things to sit in the pocket that you're trying to get it to sit in. And then the only send that this is going to is it's a reverb, and it's a chroma verb medium ambience preset. I think I just took the dry down more, and I might have adjusted a few of these. And this isn't even in that hot. I mean, it's at -14, and that's just giving it like a little more of a space to exist within. But that, I mean, as you can see, that's the keys. So these types of keys, I'm looking forward to adding similar keys to maybe some other projects down the line, and experimenting on maybe trying different variations of note repeating, different, maybe take it up to +12 or +7 or -7, whatever, or at different intervals. But I love sharing the process when it comes to making Microhouse. It's a small community that we have here on the internet, but it's a really passionate community, and that's what I love the most about it, is the passion and the dedication. And when you listen to someone like Radu, or maybe I'm not pronouncing that right, Radu, or like Raresh, or Ricardo Villalobos, you can hear the passion that those guys put in their music, and you can hear the details that they put in their music. And this technique is something that you can take home and apply to your own productions, and maybe further build upon and apply some of your own techniques. And I just love sharing how you can try new things in Logic, and I'm also excited to share. I might start doing some Ableton tutorials, maybe some Reason tutorials, Pro Tools, whatever DAW you're trying to do. I'm trying to learn it. It's like Pokemon. I got to catch them all. And anyways, I just want to say thank you to everyone who's been supporting my channel, supporting my music, supporting my DJ mixes, and stay passionate. Have a great day. Later.